everyone, and welcome to the Irish Sports Daily Instant Reaction Postgame show from the National Championship game. Notre Dame falls to Ohio State 34-23. I am Greg Flamong. That is Jamie Uwayama, Mr. University, and that is the Godfather, Mike Frank from Irish Sports Daily. Again, Notre Dame falls 34-23 to lose the national championship to Ohio State. They are going to finish second this year in the college football season. 14-2 for Notre Dame, the most wins they've ever had. Win the Sugar Bowl, win the Orange Bowl, couldn't cap it off with a national championship. We're going to talk about everything we saw in this game. And I don't know, just some big thoughts on everything that happened tonight. So thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you hear today, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So whenever it is, we are going to go live. Links to the podcast, as always, are in the description below. The show is always brought to you by ESQ Clothing, founded by Notre Dame alum Ge Wang. You've seen ESQ on all your favorite Notre Dame players and coaches with over a decade of making the best custom clothing available. ESQ will help you look and feel your best in 2025. From a perfect fitting suit or sport coat, shirt, or bomber jacket, or the perfect tuxedo for wedding season, check out Ge's amazing work at esqclothing.com. Book an appointment to upgrade your wardrobe today. Mention ISD and get 10% off your entire purchase. Fellas, I think the theory, at least for me, behind Notre Dame winning this game was it was going to be I guess they were going to play a great game, and I thought Al Golden was going to be the key to the game in terms of, excuse me, I didn't mean to do that, in terms of the way that he called the game and Notre Dame's defensive plan. And, you know, we could talk about why this was, but that was not what happened. Ohio State scored touchdowns on their first 4 possessions. Notre Dame never got off the field. Notre Dame went down the field and scored on their first offensive drive. Almost took 10 minutes. Ohio State scored on 4 straight possessions from there to take a 28-7 lead coming out of halftime. And that was pretty much it, right? Like Notre Dame, they made a valiant effort to come back. I think they played much better in the second half. You spot a team like that, 21 points. It ended up being 24 points. It's just very hard to win a game of this magnitude when you start down 31-7. Obviously disappointing, right? And it's tough to kind of process that. I guess let's start big picture for a little bit. We'll start with you, Mike, about just processing what happened there, the disappointment that you feel based on how they played in that first half, the first half and the start of the third quarter there, just kind of that disappointment bit, and then just kind of processing like how they came back and made it a game, couldn't pull it out in the end.
Well, I think the first thing you want to say is that you can't be disappointed in the season. You know, they played wonderful all year. I think they exceeded every expectation that you hoped for. I mean, the game was disappointing. I don't think anybody thought that they'd start this way. And you cannot start a game like this and be in a hole like that at halftime and expect to win. And then you certainly can't have what happened at the beginning of the second quarter happen and expect to win. And, the coaching staff went in there and said, hey, guys, this first drive, we absolutely have to stop them. And then you have a misfit on a run, and next thing you know, they're first and goal. And that really is I guess the whole premise of the game. That's what happened. The entire game is Notre Dame just was not ready to play on defense. I think offensively they came out and we saw exactly what we thought we were hoping to see. And then, the next drive they have 2 ridiculously dumb things happen and it puts you behind the sticks. And then all of a sudden the defense goes up and gives up another stupid drive. And you're just sitting there saying, this is not the way it should start. And when you play a team like this, you cannot get behind like this and expect to come back. It's really difficult for that to happen. And we've said all along, you can say recruiting doesn't matter, but we saw tonight that recruiting does matter, especially when you got 3 receivers who are going to be, probably first-round draft picks. It's hard to cover all 3 of them. It's hard to make sure that you have them all covered, and they make you play a defense that you don't want to play. And if you do that, then you're not playing as the team that you are. And I think that I don't know. I don't think Notre Dame coaching staff did a good job in this game, but I also don't think Notre Dame's players did a good job in the first half. I don't think that they tackled well. I don't think that they played assignment football well. And I think at the end of the day, it came down to Notre Dame's defensive line was not able to hold up. Notre Dame's linebackers were not able to do what they needed to do. And then at the end of the day, the passing game got going. And gosh, when you get a quarterback that starts that hot, what can you do? I mean, it's just nothing you can do defensively if you can't stop the run. And all of a sudden the quarterback gets hot like that. They got that kind of receivers. What do you do? So it's just the way I saw it.
Before we get to Jamie, I just want to do this quick super chat from CFB Hertz. He doesn't know if he'll stick around for the full show, but thanks to ISD for being awesome. We appreciate you, CFB Hertz. You're in every show. So we appreciate that in the super chat as well, support for the channel. Jamie, obviously, what did you see from kind of just, obviously it's hard to process these things in real time, but what Ohio State was able to do to Notre Dame defensively, because that's why I want to start. Because obviously Notre Dame's first offensive drive was great. And then the next 2 drives that they had, there's not a lot to talk about because on offense, because they weren't really on the field. They only had those 3 plays. You have a missed pass from Riley Leonard to Bo Collins. The next play, you have a false start. And then after that, you have a pass to Bo Collins that gets called back for a hold. 2nd and 25. You're not converting in that situation. The next drive, you have a short gain. It's 3rd and 5. You snap the ball into your tight end. And so that play doesn't even get a chance to come up. So that's the offense, basically, right? And so that's kind of what Notre Dame was on offense in the first half. The second half, the second drive for Ohio State, and after their first drive where they went down and scored, they continued to move the ball. Notre Dame could not get off the field against them. They started the game 6 for 6 on 3rd down, right? You're never getting off the field. What did you see that Ohio State was doing and that where Notre Dame was struggling to, corral them, miss tackles, miss run fits, just kind of off balance the entire time, and some, I don't want to say busts because it's man coverage, but just some like loose man coverage from Notre Dame that we haven't really seen this year.
Yeah, well, I think some of it too was, when they did play zone, they obviously that was something that Chip Kelly, you got to give your hat off to Chip Kelly.
He had a great game plan.
He had a great game plan.
Yeah.
I would say it was feeling pretty tight at the end. Maybe Dills was doing the greatest job at the end, but his first half was just he was on one. He was on one. He knew he presented. This was the thing that really stood out to me, and this is why I think that and I was chatting with Matt during the game, just texting with him, and obviously Ohio State is fast. They're so fast at receiver, and that is definitely a thing. They're so fast at running back. So that's the other thing too, is you get, Henderson, you hold them in check, but then Judkins, right? You have that.
Yeah.
But there's things, but they just did little things inside zone where they brought in the receiver to add in as extra. They had shown that before. That wasn't something that Notre Dame had seen before. They had done stuff that they just did little wrinkles in the game where you could see that Notre Dame, when they were checking to things, they weren't running tempo. So it wasn't getting them off balance.
Right.
But Notre Dame, they saw formations, they saw route combinations that they weren't familiar with. And that's the thing that why you have to give total credit to Ohio State is in that they did that and they kept them off balance. So that's why the guys were missing tackles, not losing things in man coverage, because it's they're anticipating different things that they were getting. And you can only just tip your cap to Ohio State for that, for just, presenting these things and basically making an Al Golden defense look confused, which you just never see. You never see that. Like, that's just something that's even really, even if you said like with Lincoln Riley and USC, I mean, they did some really cool stuff in the screen game that I thought was obviously good off of like Notre Dame's man coverage, which was great. But a lot of the stuff was they just ran go balls and just threw it up and just they caught enough of them to make plays, right? Like, that wasn't what Ohio State was doing. Like, they were just like manufacturing stuff all the time. And the thing is that when you can't get any pressure on the quarterback, a guy is it was like 7-on-7 for him. It was like 7-on-7. And this was the game, and we've always talked about it, like, was there going to be a point when Notre Dame was going to cost them that they didn't have these games, and the guys that they missed, right? Like Mills, Patel, Traore are like three guys that would play on third down for you, right? Like, they would, because they would rush the passer well. And they absolutely just missed those guys, because even it didn't matter if they blitzed, didn't matter if they rushed forward, didn't matter what they did, they couldn't win one-on-one. They couldn't win one-on-one pass rush at all. It didn't matter. It doesn't matter if you bring extra guys. If they got 6 guys to block 6 and you can't have 1 or 2 guys win, it doesn't matter. And that was the thing. They couldn't get any kind of real pass rush on Howard until like very late. And even then, it wasn't even that much. Like, that wasn't like the story of the thing. Like, because if you look at, say, even the third down that he missed, that 3rd and 3, which was an obvious pick. I know you saw it.
That was like shocking. Like, I was like, there has to be a number of flags out, because usually on that it's like you rub and you don't really contact the player covering. It's like,
yeah, Scott like ran right into him.
It was crazy.
Yeah.
Anyway.
But I mean, Howard just missed that throw, and he made every single one of those throws he made in the first half. And that's kind of like one of the things was like Howard would do that every once in a while. And especially like on third down, he hasn't been good on third down this year. And he was lights out. He was absolutely lights out. Obviously, they activated him more as a runner in this game. That was huge as well. So obviously got to give credit to Kelly for some of the stuff they did there too. But just when you get out coached, like specifically in the first half, obviously it was just a drubbing, and you have that level of talent. I mean, just they had them in like 3rd and 7 plus, like probably like 4 out of those 6 first downs or 6 third downs, and they couldn't get off the field. And that's where Notre Dame's been elite at that the whole season. They just couldn't, and that was supposed to be Ohio State's weakness, and it wasn't. They were unbelievable.
I think that the thing that kind of I noticed, and we talked about it before, like they had to get Will Howard confused. He didn't know what he was looking at, and I think he always kind of knew where exactly he wanted to go with the ball, and that was something that just kind of just stood out to me. It's like, man, he is decisive. He knows where this ball needs to go. As soon as he hits his drop, he's turning and throwing. It's like you said, like he's very decisive with the way that but like when he sees it, like he sees it and he can rip it, he's accurate. And like there were too many times where there was just no one around those guys. It was just they would turn, they would hit someone in the flat, they would turn and there's no one there. And it just they had a great plan for what Notre Dame wanted to do. I want to get another super chat from Scott Labrandy. Thank you for a great ride, and thanks for all the great coverage, ISD. Thank you, Scott, for the super chat and for your attendance today. Mike, let's talk about the game Marcus Freeman called here real quick, because I do think there were some in-game decisions. Like and I'm curious to get your thoughts, Jamie, too, because I know Mike didn't like it, but I'm curious to get your thoughts on the field goal attempt. I thought at the time, that was it didn't make sense to me, because you're taking it from 16 to 13, And then you get the ball, and it's like we get the ball, and you're still down 2 scores. Like, you still need to score twice, and you just need to score 2 more touchdowns. I just thought, like, at that point, you have to be scoring a touchdown there. And I thought the fake punt on the 4th and 1 or 4th and 2, whatever it was, you could just run Leonard. Like, you didn't need to do all that. Like, it was basically setting up a play to have Steve Angeli throwing out to Jordan Faison. You can have Riley Leonard do that out of your offense. You didn't need to do all that stuff. But Mike, I wanted to get your thoughts on some of those decisions in the game.
I didn't think it made much sense. You're expecting then your defense to make 2 stops, and they hadn't been able to stop them much. They had a little bit of recent luck, but when you look at the beginning of the game, they certainly didn't do a very good job of it. So I think it was asking too much of the defense at that point, who clearly did not show that they were up for that and couldn't do that back to back to back. And, I think at one point they'd only had 1 punt. I think they only punted 1 time the entire game, didn't they? I think it was only once.
Yeah, it was only once.
Yeah.
So I think you're asking too much there. I understand that, and again, the fake punt. Look, I mean, I look at the thing and I say, well, obviously it didn't work, but Angeli could throw a better ball. Faison could catch the ball. I mean, both those things could have happened, and then it would have been a first down. I mean, it just should have been. And you got
to make the play on both counts.
I mean, you do. So you're damned if you do, damned if you don't. So it just should. I mean, it was just not the best throw, and certainly not the best attempted to catch either. And I don't know, for whatever reason. I don't know. You just don't have much you can count on. But when I look at the future of this, and I don't want to get into a whole negative thing here, because look, man, you look at what's coming back at the offensive line, right? We're seeing Jaden Greathouse become the player that we had hoped he would. And I mean, what a great 2 games by Jaden Greathouse. I mean,
awesome.
You want to talk about a positive. I mean, dude made plays. And, I know Jamie mentioned it a couple times, and you guys did in Hit and Hustle. I mean, this guy made great plays against all the best players in Texas in high school. And guess what? He's doing it again against, the best players in the country at Ohio State. So there's a lot to be excited about. And you still got the 2 great running backs. And Eli Reardon's going to be a great tight end. And, so offensively, they're going to be much better. There's no doubt about it. It's just, it's hard to ask Riley Leonard to be this all-world passer, when you fall behind like this. And, in his defense, I think Riley made some great plays in the second half. There's no doubt about it. But where they needed him to make the plays was in the first half on a couple of those short throws and those things that they needed to convert. But didn't happen, and that's how you fall behind. And I don't know. I'm not blaming Riley Leonard by any stretch of the imagination. The defense was just not good. I don't think the defense game plan, I don't think it was executed well. I don't know. I don't think they reacted well to what Ohio State was doing. At the end of the day, as Jamie pointed out, I guess at the in the Power Hour show, most of these guys are going to be back, and they're going to be better next year. And so, as frustrating as the game was, and at times as ugly as it was, Notre Dame's going to be a lot better. And I think when you look at who Notre Dame's going to be versus everybody else that have people coming back, I mean, Ohio State's going to lose a lot of these guys. They're gone. And yeah, they have some guys coming back, but they're not going to have the same kind of experience that Notre Dame is. And you look at all the other teams that are going to be coming back, and Notre Dame, because they've had to play so many people because of the injuries, their depth is going to be very, very strong, and their frontline players are going to be very, very good. So as frustrating as this, this is, I don't know, the season, the season was fantastic, but as frustrating as this ending of this season is, you got to feel really, really good about where they're going and what the future of this team is. And I mean, gosh, it was so hard to watch because you felt like they could have played better and made more of a game of it. But you have to sit there and think, hey, look, this is going to be a great team in the future. And I don't know. I'm just frustrated. I'm frustrated with the end of it because I do think that they could have played better. And I didn't expect them to play this poorly, especially on defense. And, if they would have just played a little bit better, I think they would have had a chance. And you just can't give up that many plays, big plays in the first half to have much of a chance. So anyway, go ahead.
I think something that happened in this game that hasn't really happened to Notre Dame, and this is obviously forced by Ohio State too, like that needs to be like the undercurrent of everything. Like Ohio State is forcing a lot of this. They're very good, obviously. I mean, look, we said it, Jamie. I mean, we said it in the how many shows we had. They were the best team in college football this year, and Notre Dame had to play their best game, and they didn't. And the thing of it is that it hasn't happened. Is Notre Dame, as they have done before, they were scuffling on offense at the same time the defense couldn't get off the field, and that is the problem. We haven't really seen that. Yeah, with Notre Dame, it's like it's always the defense has struggled.
There's always someone else to pick up.
Right, slack, like one of them is always playing well, and they were both playing poorly at the same time, and it just went from like a competitive, like look, it obviously looked back 15-7, but as long as you could get the ball and just move it and go down the field, they just continued to scuffle there, and it was like, oh boy, like Notre Dame, like I mean, I tweeted out like they really need to score here. It's like Captain Obvious kind of thing, but they needed something like to do. They snapped the ball on third down. They snapped the ball off Mitchell Evans, and you give the ball back to Ohio State, and they go down and score with 20 seconds left, and it's just like you've lost control of the game because then Ohio State gets the ball. Then they go down and score again. And it was just like, and a lot of people are talking about it's worse than Bama. And I kind of had a feeling like Notre Dame is going to recover, but you just cannot recover that much against a team of this caliber down 24 points. You just cannot. And that is, it's to me, like I was watching that second half, we can call it a comeback. And I was just frustrated because it happened too late. It was too late for them to find themselves. And I kind of figured they are going to find themselves. And that's going to be very frustrating. And they did, but it was too late. And they got outplayed the entire first half, save for the first drive. And that was kind of the frustrating part for me just watching it. Is just like I knew they were going to find it, but I also had the sense it's too late. You just cannot reel off 24 straight points against a team of this caliber. I do want to get to this super chat from Buddy Mitchell. Thank you for the super chat, buddy. Appreciate you guys. Excited about Notre Dame football. Haven't said that in 35 years. Future is bright. Go Irish. I do want to get to something that I'm thinking of now, and I don't want to lose it for later. I think the key to this going forward for Notre Dame is how do they get to be the team? Because Marcus Freeman did the thing that hasn't been done, right? They beat Georgia. They beat Penn State. Those kind of toss-up big games that Notre Dame hasn't been able to win, especially in the big bowl games. How do they get to the point where they are the ones who are the 10-point favorite in the title game? How do they get to the point where someone like Caleb Downs is a freshman at Alabama, goes to the championship game and says, you know what? I'm getting in the portal and I'm going to your school, right? Like, how do they, can they ever get to that point? And is that necessary? Like, how do they get to the point where Ryan Williams, wide receiver at Alabama, says, you know what? I'm getting in the portal. I'm going to Notre Dame. Like, it is very hard to win a title if that sort of thing isn't happening. And you're also not landing Jeremiah Smith and guys of that caliber. Like, I just like, how do they get to that point? And that's the thing that kind of is I don't want to say concerning, but it's just like I don't know that they can ever get there. And so I'm curious to get your guys' thoughts on that.
Well, first off, I don't know if you don't necessarily have to get there, I think, to win a championship, where I used to think that's what I had thought for a while, but I'm not 100% convinced that you have to get like where they have to get those guys that are like Downs who are 1 year, you know, switching over. Judkins, obviously. I mean, Downs and Judkins, if you look at like adding those two in the game, they're pretty big factors in the game, right?
Yeah.
Like, so obviously you want to have that, but I don't know if Notre Dame will ever do that. But it really does come down to recruiting. And it comes down to, like, obviously they've done a great job evaluating. Like, you're not trading Leonard Moore. There's a ton of corners ranked higher than Leonard Moore in the recent recruiting class. You're not trading him for any of them. Like, he's the guy you want. Like, so it's not about that kind of thing. They've obviously done a great job. Like, I think you saw like Chris Burgess, who's showing up at you know, the Navy All-American game, and like you're like, wow, like this guy is a stud, right? Like they've done a good job with finding these things, but it really comes down to like you can't have like I don't want to turn it into like the whole like, hey, you can't have these classes where you don't land the receivers and stuff like that. But it is true, because you get to these points where it's like you need to get these guys and then get enough of them. You have to compile them up. And the problem with, you know, say this year, and I know you don't want to talk about the injuries in terms of like what it cost them for this game, even though
you should.
Absolutely, Mike, you should.
It's one of those things like where that's another thing that you need. You need to not lose your first round pick, Ben Morrison.
That's what it is.
That's a luck thing.
Everybody's getting down about it, but look, man, if you had a healthy Ryan Mills, right? You had a healthy Howard Cross. You had Ben Morrison playing in this game. You had a couple of the linemen playing. We wouldn't be having this conversation. I'm not saying they're going to win, but it certainly would have been a lot closer. Well, you know what I mean? And Ohio State didn't have that. You know what I mean? They didn't have the same injuries, and Notre Dame had injuries in places they literally could not afford to. You know, and it just is what it is. You know,
I just mean for like the depth is kind of what I'm, because I would say like that's where they're missing, and also too why I think like they're going to be in a better spot, because I think that they are going to be in a position. So next year, right? Like if you keep stacking up like corner there, you know, they've hit a corner under Marcus Freeman, but like once you start stacking them up and like you get like 4 classes in a row where you're getting at least one corner, well, then your depth there is just so different than it is where it was now, where it's like, well, if Leonard Moore doesn't play and Jaden McKee's out, then you're screwed, right? Like, so, I mean, obviously Jaden McKee wasn't going to help in this game, but you know what I mean? You know what I'm just saying, like as a body, but you have to be able to get these things. So they're having this junior day. This is coming up. There's some studs coming to this junior day. Well, this is probably one of the best junior days they've had in a while in terms of just like top end talent. They've obviously had some big, official visit weekends in the summer where they had some big guys. Well, you got to land those guys. You got to land enough of those guys. And it's great that they landed Matt Ferrermo, but they needed to land 3 or 4 more guys, which we kind of go back to before. Like we went back to when original signing day, those other big guys that they missed on, there was probably like 7 guys and they needed to land 4 of them. Well, they landed 1, that has to change. Hopefully this helps with the uptick of that.
And that's what I mean.
Everybody was necessary.
Well, everybody was, because I was throwing a big fit about it. But guess what? This is why it matters, right?
It does.
This is exactly why it matters. And that's why, I mean, look, if you look at the situation right now, the reason Notre Dame's in the O-line situation they are right now is the 3 elder players are Tosh Baker, Rocco, and Pat Coogan. And those are kind of the three older statesmen right now. They're Harry's guys. And while I think that they're all kind of warriors, they're just not athletic enough to play at this level. They're not athletic enough to be the types of players that you want. Now, it's okay if you have one of them, like Rocco or Pat, if you had one of them, that's okay. But when you have three of these guys and these are your elder statesmen, that's something that makes it difficult. When you look at the wide receiver situation, we knew forever that they were, they struggled. They didn't have anybody. So you have to go out and you get a Chris Mitchell, Jaden Harrison, and Bo Collins. And, they had a couple catches tonight, but nothing that really adds. And then you have guys like Deion Colsey and Jaden Thomas as your next kind of round of guys as the elder statesman. This is why you struggle at wide receiver, is because you don't have anybody. And so recruiting matters. And this is why it matters. And this is why I was so upset about the close of what happened in this last class, is because, look, man, at the end of the day, you still have to land these guys. If you want to compete against the very best players, you can't go 1 for 7 or 1 for 8 or whatever. Because when it comes down to the end of the season and you're playing the very best teams, this is when it matters. Doesn't matter when you're beating Boston College or Georgia Tech or any of these other teams. But it does matter when you're trying to beat the best teams. And that's what we ended up with. And again, I'm not trying to say that they were bad players. I'm not trying to say that Rocco or Pat Coogan are bad players. I'm not saying that. I'm saying none of those guys are going to be first-round draft picks, second-round draft picks, third-round draft picks, fourth-round draft
not
picks.
Playing in the NFL.
Most likely they're not. And that's what the issue is. And you can't continue to miss on this and expect to win these games. And that's really what it boils down to. So anyway, go ahead.
Yeah, well, no, I think you're 100% right, Mike. But I also think that, like, where they're at on the offensive line, obviously they're going to have that. And I think Rudolph.
I agree. Yeah. O-line, I'm not worried about. Not at all. Yeah.
I'll say this too, as we're talking about the offensive line. I know Notre Dame didn't even really get a chance to even get the running game going. I definitely have issues with the usage of Jeremiah Love in the game for sure, but they didn't really have a chance to get the running game going. So I don't really want to
That's what it was. I mean, Greg pointed it out. I saw that, I saw a lot of people say, well, they only had 7 carries, but look, I mean, they had the big first series, right? And then they had the second series that blew up.
9 carries for Leonard.
The way the game flow went on offense, it completely took Jeremiah Love out of the game. Like he
did, because
just
you're down 24 points at half. After the first series and half. That I mean, everybody wants to blame, like, oh, well, we didn't run the ball. Well, when you're down 24 points against a team that scores like this, you don't have time to run the ball. You don't have time to do that. And
I think the one area where you could say you have to find a way to get Love involved is it's first and goal from the 9 or whatever it is. And this is where I said, like, Marcus Freeman and Mike Denbrock, they got to get on the same page. I don't think there's any way that Mike Denbrock thinks, well, I only have 3 downs. I'm calling a quarterback draw on first down.
Yeah.
I just don't think there's any way that was true. I think he thought, I have 4 downs here. And if you have 4 downs, I have no problem with quarterback draw there. Okay.
Yeah.
But at that point, you have to get Jeremiah Love involved because he is your playmaker. He is your best offensive player. Right. And it's just like, that is one where it's like, you got to have something for him. I don't know what it is. Right. And this is a thing of, like, it's so armchair quarterbacky to say, but it's also true. Like, you do need to get your playmaker the ball in that situation. I think that's kind of the only time where I would say you didn't do the great job with your personnel at that point, because the rest of it is just the game flow and the way it went. They just could not get him the ball. They could. It went so perfectly for Ohio State after the first drive. When Notre Dame got in their own way on the 2 drives after that, and then their offense completely dictated how the game was going to go from there.
Well, that's what exactly. Notre Dame shot themselves in the foot the next 2 drives, and then the defense just crapped the bed. I mean, that's really what it boiled down to. And then I think that you would have saw a lot more of the running game had Notre Dame came out and stopped them on that first series, right? In the first half. If they would have stopped them in that first series, then there's plenty of time to get the running game going again. But that didn't happen, right? They gave up that big, huge run, scored right away, and you're down 24 points. You don't have much to do. I agree with you 100%, though. That first down series there from in the red zone there, I didn't understand that. And I certainly, as you know, I sent the text saying, why are you running quarterback draw there? I mean, especially if you're going to kick a field goal. Didn't make any sense to me. But so I think you're right there, Greg. If there is a time to get them involved, it's there. And I mean, I think the other thing too is a lot of people are hoping screen game, but when has Notre Dame's screen game been worth a crap the entire year? It has not been
good at all.
Yeah.
And it's because their tackles don't do a good job of handling the outside pressure, and Riley Leonard has a hard time throwing the ball over that. So
this also wasn't a good team to throw screen against because those ends, mess up a lot of stuff there.
Yeah, they peel off.
But I did want to point out though, because speaking of those ends, and this is the point I was trying to make, was the offensive line. I mean, they knew that Notre Dame was dropping back and throwing the entire second half, pretty much.
Yeah,
they did a heck of a job in protection.
Yeah, Juggernaut is going to be a stud, and I thought
Juggernaut and Wagner.
Yeah,
those guys did not wreck the game. They wrecked every other CFP matchup. Those guys dominated their matchups.
Yeah,
like 12 and a half havoc plays for Sawyer in the 3 games, 11 for JTT. And I know JTT is playing, he was playing hurt too, right? But even the sack that he had in the game was a coverage sack.
Garbage.
Yeah. So it was not like, and I thought really the interior did a good job. Like, I mean, they handled the blitz pretty well. They got home on the 1, right? They got home on the 1. Obviously, it was a nice, delay there from them. But like, I thought Notre Dame did a really good job in protection. Like Joe Rudolph, man,
stud.
Tip your cap to him. Like, just a fantastic job. Like, to have this much change there and to do that job, like the offensive line is going to be awesome next year. They are going to be awesome. Like, it's.
I agree.
At
least of my worries. Agree 100%.
Yes, well, and I think because of that, no matter who wins the quarterback job, that guy's going to be in a good spot. Like, that guy's going to be in a really, really good spot. Plus, you probably have a guy in Jane Greathouse. I mean, I'd say that he should be wide receiver 1 going into the offseason if he hasn't earned it.
If you can ball out like this against the best teams in the country, damn right you should be.
Well, this is what I'll say. Wide receiver 1, wide receiver 8, whatever. As we just saw, you need more than one guy who's going to be a playmaker at wide receiver for you. And it's not just the catching the passes, because he's had trouble not just separating, but like the run after catch stuff. Like that is so encouraging from him. Especially against the 2 defenses because these are good defenses now. All right. Now these Penn State and Ohio State, these are the two of the best defenses you're going to face, especially in the secondary. They got some good players back there. To be able to do that against those teams, I think is huge. Like wide receiver 1, he's a guy that you can count on. It's playmaker, catching the ball in traffic. Like that's the kind of thing where it's like that. If you take anything from this game, it's Jaden Greathouse. Like he gives you something there that you can really get excited about it as a wide receiver. Anything that anyone says about him, in terms of his play, I don't think you can really like overstate how well he played tonight and how encouraging that is for Notre Dame going forward. I apologize, Jamie. I'm just I was simmering on that for a little bit.
No, you perfectly, encapsulates the point that I want to make about him. Like, I think, that's someone, because you want to come out of this season, right? And obviously, celebrate the season for what they had, but also too, like, let's be honest, like the stuff that I'm writing about, like the rest of the week is like what the team is going to look like next season, right? And how things are going to be different, right? So obviously, I mean, boundary is something that they need, and Malachi Fields, hopefully that's there, right? And that's going to be something, and certainly he's the best boundary that they've landed in terms of talent there, right? So that's a big thing. There's a lot of building blocks on offense to be excited about.
That slot fade catch was amazing. I mean, he had one arm just like pulled and fought through that thing, came up with a ball. I mean, the guy's going to be a really good player, and I'm excited about his potential, and I think that they got some guys that are going to be good players next year, guys are going to develop, and we got to hope that Faison puts it together. I don't know, just can't seem to be a consistent playmaker, and and I don't know. Hopefully, he's able to do that because they need him to be that next year. If it's not him, I think that they got players on the roster who are easily as talented as him, and look, if those guys show up and they're playing in the spring, let's get them going. Let's get them going. So, I think when you look at the wide receiver situation, I think it's going to be better. We know the O-line's going to be better. We know the backs are going to be really, really good. It's going to come down to what your quarterback can do. But the best thing about that is I think that the quarterback is going to have way, 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 way more better protection than Riley Leonard had this year. And we have to feel like
Mike. Greg, block this LSU guy who's trolling in the chat. Oh, sorry, Mike. Keep going, Mike. Sorry.
Go. Yeah. Well, anyway, but yeah. So I mean, again, I think that offensively we're in a really good position. I really do, and I'm excited about what we're going to see with this team, and can't wait to see what happens. I think we have some really good coaches. As we mentioned, Joe Rudolph and Deland McCullough, doing a really, really great job. And we got to see what happens at wide receiver with coaching. I think it's a little too early to say exactly what we have right now at wide receiver coaching, because just haven't had enough, I guess, time to really evaluate that. But there's enough talent there that we should see a big jump from a lot of these guys. If we see that, then I feel pretty good about it. I feel pretty good about what's going to happen offensively. Defensively, we're going to see what happens. Is this Al Golden's last game? I don't know. I don't know what the answer to that is. And what, it's going to be what we'll be talking about certainly on Monday. It'll be interesting to see if he takes any sort of interview or whatever with Cincinnati and go from there. And I don't know. We'll see. A lot of people
I believe this is Al Golden's last game. I'll just say right now.
Certainly, and if it is Al Golden's last game, did that have any impact on this game? I don't know.
I mean, I doubt it. Because one, he didn't talk to them beforehand, because that was the one thing. Ian Rappaport from the NFL Network reported, like, literally, he waited until it was like 1 second left on the clock to be like, now that the game is over, Al Golden is free to talk to, Zach Taylor, who's his number one choice to be the Cincinnati Bengals DC. So,
but Jamie, it was kind of like we knew that Al Golden was going to be the defensive coordinator at Notre Dame. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Don't tell me there wasn't any talking there. Of course there was.
No, but I just mean, like, he wasn't, like, he hadn't. Let's be honest. They're either going to just. He doesn't really need to interview. He's either going to offer it to him.
Here's the thing,
and then Golden has to decide.
I think if it's as sure as I believe it to be, this happened probably before the Orange Bowl, and they were great. Like, this has been to me, this has been in the works for a while. Just in my opinion, and they've been great. I just think he had a bad game. I think that he had a bad game. I think the players had a bad game. Look, and plus, not just that, you got to credit Ohio State.
No, agree. Totally.
They did not get, because they found Christian Gray, man. Who did they target in this game? They targeted Christian Gray. They targeted Rod Hurd on the one coverage. Like, they went after Jordan Clark a couple times, but that was like, what, the long was 6 yards, right? Like, Jordan Clark played fine.
Clark did a really good job against
Right.
Igbuka. When he was matched up on him in man.
Yeah, Igbuka did not have a big game, right? I mean, when did Jeremiah Smith get off? He had one catch against Leonard Moore. I think that was the only catch Leonard Moore gave up. And then they just cooked on Christian Gray.
Yeah, he had the one play.
It's just what so it is what it is. Ohio State found the matchups they needed to. They put Notre Dame's linebackers in conflict, which every good team did against them. They found those matchups, and like we said, Chip Kelly, he put on a master class, and Al Golden's job was to confuse Will Howard to get them into negatives. Couldn't do it. He couldn't do it. I don't think it has anything to do with Cincinnati, and I don't want to say that because I have no idea. So I'm just going to assume he's a professional. He knows how to handle the situation. Instead of bad game.
You know what? Just to kind of go back to your point, Mike, about like how we knew that Golden was going to be the coordinator while he was working for Cincinnati the whole time. His kind of non-answer during the thing when he was asked about it kind of says that, Greg, you're probably correct that he's
he knew.
At least like leaning towards that, or he's looking for whatever. Yeah,
he knew.
So
he knew. And I mean, we can all say what we want to say about it and professional and this and that. I just know whenever I was done with a job, I was not the same person. You know what I mean? I just was not, and I'm not saying that that's what happened in this situation. I just know for me personally, when I quit a job and I knew I was done, I was done. And I'm not saying that that's what happened in this situation. I'm just saying, again, when that was my situation and I put my 2 weeks in, I was done. And that's just the reality of it. So, you know what I mean? It just is what it is. So, I don't know. What do we do here?
Well, I mean, we don't even need to get into what is going to be the possibilities of who's next, because I think Mike Mickens is probably the likely guy, but whatever. I'll come up with a list.
It's just the natural order of things, Like,
yes.
Look, this is what happens. You have a DC who
you wouldn't be able to keep Mickens if you don't promote him either.
You have a DC for 3 years, and he moves on to the NFL, and you have someone waiting in the wings. Like, that's how it works, and that's how it should work. That doesn't mean Mike Mickens is a home run or anything like that, or it's not a prediction. You certainly know that he has the trust of the team. We certainly know that he can bring in good players and he can develop players. This is how you do it, right? You promote from within.
He's a heck of a coach. Yeah.
Yeah. Notre Dame knows what they have. And not just that, but Mike Mickens knows the scheme. He's been in the scheme for the last 3 years. Yeah. So, it's just, to me,
they don't have to change much.
Yeah. It's not really anything. It's just, it just is what it is, right? Like you move on, and go ahead.
Well, I was going to say too, this was a game too where you saw from the linebackers, definitely the youth of the linebackers, where they got really put in situations where you were like, this is the kind of thing where you didn't see as much of that stuff. I mean, and that is a credit to what Kelly and to put them in conflict and all that, because I think that was. I mean, I know Mike too. You were on the linebackers in the chat. Like, it wasn't a great night for the linebacker. It was a great play by Drake Bowen to knock that ball out, but he had a rough night.
Terrific hustle play. Terrific.
Yes, it was
and you got to give him credit. Well, look, I'm not a big Drake Bowen fan, as far as what he did in the last couple games, but you'll never question his heart. You know what I mean? You will never question his heart. So, he's going to get better. He will get better. There's no question about it. But I don't think he played really great in Penn State game, and I don't think he played really great in this game. And It just is what it is. I mean, it's a hard position to play. It really is a hard position to play. So they're just going to have to get better at it.
Want to point out super chat from Aiden Curtin as well. Appreciate that, Aiden, for the super chat. Really appreciate your contributions. Something that Al Golden brought up in one of the interviews, and I thought it was interesting for him to kind of bring up about the corners, and I don't want to. To me, this isn't really an excuse because I don't think Ohio State's doing a lot of rotating either. But something that Al Golden has always liked to do is he's always liked to rotate his corners a little bit. Like, remember last year, we were always like, why is this a series for Christian Gray and Jaden Mickey? We said it all the time. Like, well, do we really need to give them a series like in this situation, right? Like against Clemson or against Louisville, right? When things are going poorly, it's like, and they're getting throughout the year, they're getting these series. After Ben Morrison goes down and after Jaden Mickey leaves the team, I mean, like Leonard Moore, he's playing every single snap in every game. Christian Gray is playing most of the snaps in every single game. And now you're in the 16th game and you've been doing it since week 5, you know? So like that accumulation, like I think the hit or miss from Christian Gray at the end of the year that we didn't see at the beginning of the year, you know, he's a young player. He's going to get physically more mature. But like, I think he broke down a little bit, you know, and mentally he just, I mean, there was a play today where they're in man coverage and he's got eyes in the backfield in man and he loses Carnell Tate on the over route. It's like, you just don't see that from these guys. I mean, that is just DB first day. Don't get in the backfield when you're in man coverage. And he's in the backfield in man coverage and he's chasing, he's far behind. It's third down, you know? It's like that's the kind of thing where it's like mentally when you're beaten up, you start to do those things. And I'm just, again,
that's a great point.
I just think it's a reason. Like, I just think there's been a degradation in his game specifically over the course of the year that we just didn't see in the
beginning of the year. They're playing 4 corners, right?
Yeah, no,
they're playing 4 corners at the beginning of the year. Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like trying to put, you know, Howard Cross in this situation, you know, where
man, do I feel bad for Howard Cross?
Yeah, I mean, he's got to play all this, and he's clearly not up to what it is, you know, and really a Donnie Heinisch, you know, this is not. It's not what he is built for, is to play 40 snaps or 50 snaps against a team like this, you know. It just
Rubio had a tough game too.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a concern. If there's one concern about this team next year for me, it's interior defensive line. It just is. And I don't know how you can watch what we watched in tonight's game and really what we watched against Penn State and feel real confident, even with the signees that they have coming in, that they're going to fix this, you know, because we haven't seen much of Sevillano. We haven't seen much of Mukum. And look, you know, I think if those guys could have really given him anything, it may have made sense to give him a chance and didn't see him at all. And let's be honest, this was not a situation where, I mean, Notre Dame had been playing young defensive linemen the entire year, but you know, obviously it's a bigger thing when it becomes a playoff or whatever. But it just tells me, I think that, you know, those two guys got a ways to go, meaning Sevillano and Mukum, before they can really be counted on. So interior D-line, I think, is going to be the big question for the year next year.
Rajon had a question here about what did Gray see on the play when he was wildly waving his arms and Smith scored? Jamie, you thought that Smith flinched on the play?
Oh, he moved while the other guy was in motion.
Got you. Okay.
So I thought he was pointing out that, you know, you obviously can't move while that other guy's in motion. You can't like take a step forward or step back. He did that. That's obviously 2 guys moving at the same time. Should be a flag. They didn't flag it. But I read the thing too. You thought it was, you know, him, the orbit motion, which makes total sense with what he did on the play. Right. Yeah. And I don't know if anyone saw on Twitter, but people saw it. It was people who saw it after, because a bunch of, like, you know, the film people put it out that, like, that was the Devonte Smith play from Alabama.
The Alabama game in 2020. Yeah.
Yeah. Not against Notre Dame, but in their national championship.
They did it against Ohio State.
Ohio State, right?
Yeah.
So, and I mean, it also scored a touchdown. It was a good play. Like, it was a good design. Like, I mean, I saw people being like, Gray blew it, or whatever. And it's like, you could say he blew, the Jeremiah Smith thing or whatever. Like, yes, that play, I don't think was on him. I think it was just a great design.
So this is a situation, is a perfect example of Chip Kelly calling the perfect play against the defense that he wants to. If they're in zone, that play doesn't work.
No, it doesn't work.
Because Gray doesn't leave the area. But so Gray, what he's doing, in my opinion, he's pointing out like, hey, my guy is going to orbit, and you got to look out for me because I have to sift through all of this. I have to get to the other side of the field, right? And if this is something that Ohio State does and it's an alert for him, he's letting the team know, like, hey, I'm coming to the other side. I have to get through all of you. And so Christian Gray he sees the orbit. He takes his eyes off Jeremiah Smith because he's watching through the traffic. He doesn't want to get caught up in traffic. Takes his eyes off Smith. Smith stops, reverses. Gray doesn't see it because he's trying to get through the traffic. It's a great call against the defense, Yes, Gray, in film, they'll say, hey, you need to keep your eye on the wide receiver. In reality, in the real world, they just got you in the perfect defense against exactly what they wanted. And that's just how it works sometimes.
It was a great call.
And, it just is what it is, man. It's just like that's sports. And that's sometimes like you got an OC like Chip Kelly. You're going to get got sometimes.
Guys, I got to run. I got to say goodnight to my family that's still here. Just wanted to say, folks, fantastic season. A lot to be excited about. Bad game, just didn't unfold like we wanted. I do think we need to point out that, hey, man, they fought back. They could have folded, and they just kept fighting. And I think that that's encouraging as well. I think the future is encouraging. So excited about that as well. But thanks for everybody coming on the show and your questions, your super chats. I'm going to run. I'll let these two finish it out. Look for some, a bunch of stuff about the game, and can't wait to see what happens with Junior Day coming up later this weekend. So thanks, everybody. Talk to you guys all soon.
Yep. We got Notre Dame's got Junior Day coming up. There's always a ton of content and info. Maybe some video coming out around that. We've got Matt Freeman for that. But if you don't have a Matt Freeman and you need video for something that you've got going on, highlight film, whatever it might be, maybe you've got some storytelling you want to do for your website, family photos, family portraits, things of that nature, then you can go with VSR Media, founded by Notre Dame football pregame host and Emmy award-winning anchor Vahid Sadrazadeh. VSR Media provides professional and cinematic video and photo. Whether you're looking for a collegiate or pro-level highlight reel, have a personal story to tell, or aiming to diversify and grow your business, VSR Media specializes in short and long-form video storytelling, social media management, and website design. VSR Media also captures professional headshots, senior and sports photos. Contact them at vsrmediacompany.com. Mention Irish Sports Daily to receive 20% off your first project. Visit them online or give them a call at 574-800-9106. Jamie. Riley Leonard. 22 of 31, 255 yards, 2 touchdowns. Obviously 71% completions, 161.4 QB rating. I thought he made some big-time throws in the second half of that game. It kind of feels like it's a little bit hollow just because it was that Notre Dame was down by so much. 17 carries, 40 yards. There's probably a good amount of sack yardage in there as well. Obviously, he was instrumental on the touchdown drive. I mean, he was the touchdown drive for Notre Dame. And you wondered if he could hold up. It didn't really come to that because Notre Dame couldn't hang on to the ball. But, I mean, let's just look at him in totality, right? He goes, I think he went over 900 yards rushing. That first drive, I thought I was
he's got a shot at that.
Oh man, I thought it was there. but it didn't happen. But I mean, look, I think. What can you say about the kid, man? He played his butt off. He goes 14-2 for Notre Dame. It just you can have nothing but good feelings about him, right? I mean, what else can you ask of him? Obviously the first half it didn't go great, but he was a warrior for Notre Dame. I think he played his butt off, and just you got to tip your cap to the kid. I mean, I just you got to feel nothing but good things about Riley Leonard right now.
I thought, in this game was like, there's so many games from him that kind of summed up what he was the whole year. Just like tough, resilient, not even close to perfect when in a lot of ways. Obviously he's a guy who struggles when he has to sit back and go through progressions and make reads and make, quick decisions there. And that is something that obviously is probably, that's what's holding him back from ever kind of developing into, a true guy who could be like a top pick kind of guy. Why he never took that jump where some people thought he could. But I mean, this guy's a heck of a college football quarterback, and he's obviously going to get drafted in the NFL. I think he like burst through his ceiling at Notre Dame. Like, I don't know if you could really expect him to play better, because I kind of think he was absolutely the peak of what he is as a player, and just did a fantastic job all year. And in this game too, everyone knows he's not a guy who's going to, if you said, hey, it's 31-7, now they're just going to drop Riley Leonard back a whole bunch of times. And, we'll see what happens. I think you'd say, well, this is just going to go horribly for Notre Dame. Like, this is not going to go well at all. But he just is, that's what he is too. He's a fighter. He's an absolute fighter, and just kept going with it. And I mean, the catch from Greathouse was great on that touchdown. The throw was just as good. That was a big time throw. Sorry, you're muted, Greg.
Yeah, it's a great throw. I mean, it's exactly where it needs to be. Like he put it right there, and he made the play. And I'll tell you what, man, I was so angry. I have not felt this way pretty much like all year about this team. There's nothing to be really angry about, but I was so angry after the Judkins run. It was so ridiculous. Like, to me, it was just like, what are you guys doing? And I'm so grateful, even though it went for nothing. I am so grateful that they showed themselves in that second half, because they needed to play better, and look, they were a 3rd and 11 away from getting the ball with a chance to tie, and that obviously that didn't seem possible at 31-7. I had the thumbnail for this show ready to go. Notre Dame falls in with 8 minutes left in the third quarter, and I never posted it because I was like, well, just wait a second. And I didn't end up posting the thumbnail that Notre Dame falls in the national title game until they kicked the field goal. And the fact that they were able to come back, and it was like the defense was playing better and the offense was cooking. Riley Leonard was cooking. He was making plays. Greathouse was making plays. Bo Collins was making plays. Mitch Evans was making plays. They were making plays out there. And it in hindsight, or not even in hindsight, like in the moment, I'm thinking to myself, thank goodness they're doing this, because it made me remember, or it made me that lasting impression of them. It was like the quality play that we saw from them the whole year. And I don't really care at all about what the narrative is at this point. It doesn't matter to me. I'm just glad that the team that we watched all year kind of showed who they are, because it was ugly. It was not them at 31-7.
Yeah.
And to end up 34-23, 31-23 at one point, I thought they did themselves proud. So I was heartened to see that.
For sure. And just kind of like obviously skimming through some of the comments from some of the players after, and obviously these guys are
Jack Kaiser's in tears. I mean,
they're hurting, right? And everyone wants to be critical or to be like, well, these guys get paid now, so that's the thing, right? Well, first of all, I mean, you see guys who lose a Super Bowl and are crying too, right? Doesn't matter what age you are or whatever, but you got to realize too, for some of these guys, you put everything into getting to this point. And you know how many Notre Dame players who have played in the last 30 years would have given anything for the one shot to get to this point and get there, and Notre Dame got close, and then it obviously wasn't going good. Like, it was going horribly, and then they just absolutely just like fought back, and like it shouldn't have been a game based from when it was 31-7, but they made it a game again.
Yeah.
It's an absolute credit to them, for what they did. Honestly, I think there's so many players too that when guys move on too, especially if they don't have long NFL careers, some guys get forgotten, in terms of what they meant for certain teams. But frankly, a lot of the guys who are seniors on this team aren't gonna go to the NFL draft, right? Like, they're not going to be high picks. But it really doesn't matter when you think about what these guys poured into the program, and just anyone who's played football knows that it's a finite thing. You don't get to play football forever. You can't go I played men's league hockey yesterday. You can play hockey. You can be old as heck and still go out and skate around with your buddies and play hockey till you're gray and old and whatever. You can't do that with football. You can't put on the pads and do these things again. You're never going to have these things again where it's really at this level, where it's this competitive, and there's just so much, and it really is the greatest game in the world. And you just hurt for those guys. You hurt for those guys who really just laid it out on the line.
Yeah. Daniel Hartman, thank you for the super chat. Says, minor point, but the spot on the Faison catch before the fake punt was terrible. Proper spot. They probably just run Riley on 4. Thanks for all you do. I actually did notice this. I did think it was like a yard.
Another one of these bad spots.
I actually did. Good job by you, Daniel, because I did notice it as well. So that's accurate. So nice job. Rajon says, thanks for the great season, guys. Yeah. And look, thank you for everyone who has tuned in, right? Like, some of you are, Rajon being one of them, you're here for every show. It means a lot to us. I mean, we put a lot into this. We put a lot of effort into this stuff, and we care, right? So it's thank you for that. Thank you for the super chat, for the support and everything. What did I want to say? I had it in my mind about what I wanted to talk about, and I lost it. Xavier Watts. His Notre Dame career is over. It's kind of weird that he's not going to be taking the field for Notre Dame next year, just because he's been a fixture for the last 2 years in the starting defense. I thought he did himself proud tonight. You could just put up the stats. I believe he led the team in tackles. He had a pass breakup. Man, the pass breakup on the wheel route to
oh man, what a fantastic play! Great play by Henderson to actually take it away.
I just thought, oh God, he really needs to. When the ball's in there coming, I was like, please pick it. You got to pick it. And obviously, it's a great play either way. I mean that they designed that play specifically to get Henderson out of the backfield and score. It's a touchdown play. And you know, he almost picks it off. So a great job by him. I thought he had a great game. I remember he had one kind of missed tackle there. But then Downs also had a couple of poor moments. He also had a couple good moments. But like that's, you know, they're two great players, and I'm gonna miss covering Xavier Watts. I've kind of talked about it a bunch. I don't remember a player where it's like you see a little thing in them, and I saw it in 2021. I just like little things that he would do. It's like, man, this kid's really figuring it out. For him to become what he became, it's just remarkable. I can't say enough about him and the player that he ended up being. And it's you know, I'm bummed out that I'm no longer get to cover him as a Notre Dame football player. Any comments on?
Oh, I truly, you know, one of the best. I mean, anytime someone is like a two-time All-American, obviously you're a great player. But you know, they're just Notre Dame has been fortunate. They've had some elite safeties in the last like 15 years, you know, going back to, you know, Harrison Smith, you know, Louis Gilman and Kyle Hamilton, obviously, and X Watts. And X Watts, like, just what a phenomenal player. Like, yeah, I will definitely miss watching him, break him down. Like, I couldn't believe how much better he got this year. And he was already great last year. He was, to me, he was the best player on the field for Notre Dame on both sides of the ball. I mean, or him or Greathouse, if you want to choose whatever. If you want to choose Greathouse, I wouldn't argue with you. But like,
yeah,
he was phenomenal in this game too, and he was just like in every game. And I can't see how anyone throws on this tape or the Georgia tape, and you look at those athletes that they have on those teams, and tell me that X Watts shouldn't be a top 5 safety taken off the board in this draft class. If he's not, then I'm sorry, he's going to be one of those guys that people talk about. Like, I don't know, people didn't take this guy. Like, because honestly, he is a next level player. Just I struggle to think of, like, I guess, I mean, I had no idea that X Watts was going to be this good probably 2 years ago, but man, he's going to be a tough guy to replace.
You know, he's going to be a great pro. He does all the things that you need to do to be a good pro, good football player, good safety, good all that stuff. Like, I know you know, Dane Brugler does a good job. So I don't like Dane Brugler will cover him, right? But like,
he does. No offense to Dane Brugler. Sorry to interrupt, Greg, but like, kind of get some vibes that he's not a Notre Dame guy.
No, listen.
I'm just saying. I just kind of get some vibes.
No, listen. I've looked into this. Okay, I don't want to make it a big thing, like just generally in my life, because I don't. Whatever, he can do whatever he wants. It's his Twitter account. He can tweet whatever he wants. He never tweets about Notre Dame ever. Doesn't tweet about Notre Dame guys. It's all Ohio State. It's like, look, you're telling me because you know sometimes it's like, oh, you know, it's only draft eligible guys. He's tweeting about Jeremiah Smith all the time. You can't send a Jeremiah Love tweet. Like, you can't talk about Jeremiah Love. Like, my point is that people, like, I tweet about Xavier Watts all the time. People, the opposing teams, like their fans talk, they think that they don't understand that he's good. They don't know anything about him. And the reason is because people like Dane Brugler, they don't tweet about him. Daniel Jeremiah, you never see anything about Xavier Watts. This guy was a 2-time All-American, like first-team All-American. No one talks about him. It's like, it's one of those things that I notice that I don't really want to get into a thing about because it's just like whatever. Again, these are their Twitter accounts. Tweet whatever you want, but it's just something that I noticed, and it's just like that's ridiculous. Like that's ridiculous, and not just that, but like I'm seeing on my Twitter feed apparently Herb Street and Fowler are crying in the booth after this game, Jamie?
What? Why?
Herb Street was crying in the booth after the game.
Oh, okay. You know what? I'm not going to Herb Street been a crier, on some of these things before. No, okay. I actually
This is a professional broadcast.
No, yes, he should be crying. No, he shouldn't be crying. But I didn't realize that he has a son who is on Ohio State right now, who plays for Ohio State.
Okay, then
he actually probably shouldn't be calling the game.
Someone else needs to call the game.
Yes.
And like,
I agree.
Excuse me, your son.
I literally just found out like 2 days ago.
What does he do on their team?
I mean, I'm sure he's a walk-on who never has.
Who doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
Go away. Like, seriously, we don't need people calling the game whose children are on one of the teams. Like that, please go. Like, and again, I listen to the game on mute. So I don't hear this. It's just like, I don't think that's like right for Notre Dame fans to be subjected to a guy whose kid is playing in one of the games. It's ridiculous. It is absolutely ridiculous. And it is unfortunate that ESPN, who has loads of talent at their disposal, it has to be Herb Street calling the game, not just for Ohio State, but for his son's team.
Well, he's the voice of college football.
He needs to not be. He is not good.
Yes, strong agree.
He is not good at his job. Just full stop. Not to get anything away from Ohio State. Oh, Jamie. What are your emotions? Just
I mean, I got to be honest. Not to get all Herb Street here, but I obviously, like Greg, that I found out my grandma passed away earlier today. I mean, she lived a long, very long life. She lived a hard life, but she lived a long life. Grateful that she's obviously she didn't die in pain or anything like that, but so it wasn't the greatest day for me. It was a tough one. So needless to say, the start of the game could have been better for old Jamie. Would have been nice if they first drive was great, but after that, thanks everyone for the condolences. But yeah, I was like, wow, this is not the most ideal thing to happen today. But I don't know. I just kind of think like when there's stuff like that, if it would have ended and it would have been like Alabama, right? The Alabama game. That would have put a stain on the season. Like not in my mind, but in the mind of so many people that I just would have hated that so much for the players, for the program, for everyone who's like a Notre Dame fan, for all these people who you got to hear. Like you're going to get, obviously there's the LSU troll here. Like, get out of here, buddy. It's not going good for BK right now.
Losers. Like it's a loser. Who comes to a game, like a chat you're not even involved in and talks trash? Like you're a loser.
Yeah. Those people are total losers.
Yeah.
Absolute loser behavior. But I think hopefully for the non-losers, that they gained a level of respect for this Notre Dame team.
Yeah.
If they hadn't already gained it coming into this game, then they probably are losers, because I think they absolutely showed what kind of program it is under Marcus Freeman. It wasn't a stellar night for the coaching staff, but I think overall you'd say they have one of the best staffs in college football. Obviously there's things that they can get better at, and they can improve the talent here and there, and there's definitely things that you'd like to see changed within, just to make it better for Notre Dame. But it's the best I've felt about Notre Dame's future in forever, because of I see the players that I like. People don't realize Ohio State had literally their whole defense, 11 starters on defense. Only one guy was a starter, was not draft eligible. And that's Caleb Downs.
Yeah. And
he's going to be a first round pick, right? The other 10 guys are going to be in the draft this year and have draftable grades. They're losing all those guys. All those guys are gone. They paid a lot to keep these guys. Hey, money well spent, you want a natty. But Notre Dame, yes, they're losing key guys. They have a lot of guys coming back who are already great, who have a chance to get so much better. And we talked about Xavier Watts and his growth. We talked about the offense earlier. I really think that and I know it is going to be, people are going to question about defensive tackle for next year and these other positions stuff too.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I've just seen when it's a new staff, you have questions about whether or not, hey, can they develop this guy? Is this guy going to be whatever? I don't really have those questions about the staff in terms of guys making that jump. Maybe a little bit at wide receiver, because Mike Brown, I want to see it with these young guys. That's going to be key.
Yeah.
That's going to be key. The Cam Williamses, the Michael Gilberts.
Yeah.
Absolutely. The Logan Saldate, those are going to be huge, right? That absolutely going to be huge for Notre Dame, because even if the transfers come in good, if you don't get those young guys developing, that's bad news bears for Notre Dame if that doesn't happen. But I don't worry about that at safety. Those guys, they're going to be, maybe they won't be as good as having Watts there, but Urlacher is going to be a dude. Tolish, these guys can play. Yeah. Obviously, they're bringing in guys too. They're going to have some, Tay Johnson. I don't know. Tay Johnson might be a stud next year. And it could happen, because guess what? We've seen it happen with so many of these guys and how they develop. So I just really think at defensive tackle, man, I absolutely you know what? I don't know how good Muka Marceviano is going to be. I can guarantee you one of those guys is going to end up being a stud. And it's going to start next year. Mm-hmm. It's going to start next year. And that's just the way it is, because anyone who saw Jason Anye or Gabriel Rubio and what they were 3 years ago to where they are now, you would be yeah, these guys are going to be fine. Or even Cross and Mills, really, right? So I just think Notre Dame's in a really good position right now. And they have to land some more elite guys, and they got to do some different things there. But I really think this year, if you compare them to Ohio State in terms of talent, yeah, it is a big difference. Next year, that gap is closing, because all these guys who are young are going to be better and going to be people are going to be talking about them. I'm just certain of it.
Yeah.
Maybe not Jay Grubler.
I should point out, like I've been pretty concerned about Mike Brown. I think the emergence late season of Faison and Greathouse,
Yeah,
that's a good sign. It's
Yeah.
It's just in full stop. That's a good sign for Notre Dame and Mike Brown. I mean, obviously there's work to do. I think Cam Williams, Micah Gilbert, that's, like you said, vital. Like that has to hit. So that
a couple of those guys have to be players.
Yeah, remains to be seen. Patrick Carter, thank you for the super chat. Thank you for your great work this year. Nothing from this game could detract from the magical season we witnessed, unless Marcus Freeman executed Riley Leonard during the game, that might impact quarterback recruiting. Yes, it would be bad if something like that happened. Like you said, man, I just think I'm so glad that they did come back the way they did, and they showed themselves a lot better, because like you said, it's not so much from the narrative, again, it's just from my own, like, the taste in my own mouth. Like, I didn't want the last time we saw this team play just be a complete egg. Like, they're better than this, and for me, I don't care. Like, again, people are gonna say things on Twitter and it doesn't matter. Like, Twitter people, like, seriously, they are not important. But it's just for my own, like, I watched this team play all year. I know what they're good at, and I know what they can do. And the fact that they weren't doing that, it was just really bugged me. So I'm glad that they came back and showed themselves in the second half of that game. Like this loser right here, like, a loser. You're a loser. You're like, what are you doing? Your life is bad, and you're making bad choices. And so you showed yourself to be a loser, and now you're banned from the show. It's unfortunate. So, I think that, like you said, the future is bright. I am a little bit concerned about, like, what does this look like when, what does this look like when you don't have a quarterback that can scramble the way that Riley Leonard does, that has the legs that Riley Leonard does, like that covers up a lot.
Piece of it. It does.
It covers up a lot, and they do have to find who that person's going to be. I mean, that is like the biggest storyline for Notre Dame football starting, like, right now, is what's that quarterback situation going to be? Is CJ Carr ready to do it? Can CJ Carr do it? Can Angeli make a run? What's Kenny Minchie going to do? These are the questions that are going to be asked. And, it's, again, starting now. I mean, it's January 20th. I mean, they don't have that long before spring ball starts, Jamie. But the good thing about,
sign up for ISD. Spring ball starts soon.
Like and subscribe. Listen, and I'll tell you the good thing about spring this year, Jamie, is they've got, like, the guys, like, there are guys like Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price. You're not doing much this spring. You're doing indies. You may not take contact, like, ever, like that sort of thing. You have guys like that, but you also have guys like we just talked about, those wide receivers, Aeneas Williams and Kedron Young. Like, you have those guys who you want to get. Nolan James, I believe Nolan James is going to be on campus. I think he's an early enrollee. Did I get that right?
Let me double check that, but I think so. Yeah.
I think he is going to be around. So you've got Nolan James around. You've got your quarterbacks. You've got those wide receivers. You're going to get your portal guys in.
Yes, Nolan James.
So,
yes.
Yeah. So it's just the youth that you can build from is good for the Notre Dame program. Like, building your depth through the spring, right? It's going to be vital. It's going to be absolutely vital for them. And look, I mean, obviously, like you said, the future is very bright for Notre Dame, and you got to feel good about Marcus Freeman. You got to feel good about the season. 14-2, You win the Sugar Bowl. You win the Orange Bowl. You win the home game. You know, not everyone got to this point. Oregon didn't get to this point. You know, look, there's no shame in losing to Ohio State. They destroyed Oregon. Like that's like Bud Elliott talking about Tom Fornelli. The real national title game was Oregon and Ohio State. Excuse me. That game was 34-0. That game was 34-0. What are you talking about? What are you saying? Oh, that was the real title game. Was it? That was never close. Like, not for 1 second was that game close. Not one time. At least Notre Dame was leading at one point, Jamie.
Yeah.
I mean, it's 31-15. Like, settle down, Tom Fornelli. Freaking. See? But I'm not supposed to be like that. I'm not supposed to be like this. All right, Jamie. I'm going to let you go. And we can end the show there. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. I'm going to be live tomorrow. All right, do you want to do the regular show, Jamie?
Yeah, let's do a regular show.
Let's do the regular show. We'll do 12 Eastern. 12 Eastern. It's the day after recap, but it's also regular hit and hustle. 12 Eastern time. 9 Pacific, 12 Eastern. We'll do our show. We'll just rehash the same stuff, talk about the game, talk about where things go from here. We'll get more, we'll have a night to sleep on it. Look, it's a bummer. It's a bummer. We thought they had a chance, and poor first half. Poor first half really done them in. And look, Ohio State went and kicked their butt in that first half, and they earned it. They're the national champions. They were the best team this year, and they are the rightful winner. They went through a gauntlet of teams that they needed to. So they're the national title. They're the national champs, and Notre Dame's going to finish number 2 this year. So that's going to do it. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in. If you like what you heard, please hit the like button. Please hit subscribe. Please hit the notification bell. So we are going live tomorrow at, like I said, 9 Eastern time or 12 Eastern time, 9 Pacific time, our normal hit and hustle day. Have a good night, everyone. We'll talk to you tomorrow. Keep hitting and hustling.